I believe that every single person can create a life that supports them. And in order to do that, you'll need to step into intentional ownership. So I'm going to invite you to affirm this with me now. I am the creator of a life that supports me. Now, I want to connect this to something that kept coming up in our last workshop. We talked about why things feel so full, why even when you're organized and on top of things, there's still that underlying pressure. And what surfaced again and again was this pattern of overgiving, the kind that builds quietly, a little here, a little there, and suddenly you're carrying a lot more than you ever intended. When I started looking more closely at this, I realized it tends to come from three places. Sometimes you pick it up because you care about the people, the outcome, how things feel. And sometimes you pick it up because you think you should. It feels like the responsible thing to do or the expectation, even if no one said it out loud. And sometimes you pick it up automatically. No real decision, just habit. You see it, you handle it. And this more often than not starts as one of the first two. So let me ask you, which of these can you relate to right now? Where are you stepping in because you care, or because you feel like you should, or because it's just what you've always done? This is where something I call the competence trap starts to take shape. When you're capable and reliable, things naturally flow to you. And between caring, internal expectations, and habit, you pick them up. And the more you handle, the more it reinforces the pattern until your plate fills up in ways you didn't consciously choose. And the cost? It's not just that you're busy. It's that you're constantly thinking, even when you're supposed to be resting. It's waking up already behind before the day has even started. It's the low-level resentment that creeps in because everyone depends on you and no one even sees how much you're carrying. It's how hard it becomes to be fully present because part of your mind is always somewhere else, tracking, planning, holding it all together. It's the guilt when you finally take a moment for yourself and the exhaustion when you don't. And over time, the cost is that you start to lose connection with yourself, what you want, what you need, what actually supports you. And life starts to feel like something you're managing instead of something you're living. And that's the dynamic we're going to work with today. And to do that, I'm going to walk you through three simple shifts. The invisible load audit, seeing everything you're holding that isn't written down. The ownership shift, getting clear on what's actually yours to carry. And the pause before yes, creating space between the ask and your response. And when you start to see this clearly, you'll begin to change your relationship with what lands on your plate. And that's where things really start to open up. Let's get into it. So strategy one is the invisible load audit. You might look at your to-do list and think, it's not even that much. And yet, you still feel constantly stretched, mentally full, and exhausted. And that's because your exhaustion isn't coming from what's on your list. It's coming from everything that isn't. The tracking, the remembering, the anticipating, the emotional labor of keeping everything running. You're not just doing tasks, you're managing an entire ecosystem. And because it's invisible, you don't even give yourself credit for it. You just feel like you're falling short. But when you actually pause and see the full scope of what you're carrying, something shifts. There's sort of this relief because you realize you're not failing. You're overloaded. Now we're going to try to make the invisible visible. I want you to take a moment and think about your day yesterday, not just what you did, what you held. Who were you thinking about even when they weren't in front of you? What were you keeping track of in the background? What did you have to remember so nothing would fall through the cracks? What decisions were you quietly making for other people? What were you anticipating before anyone even asked? What were you carrying emotionally that no one else could see? And as you reflect on that, notice this. How much of that was never written down, never acknowledged, but still fully yours to hold? Now I'm going to give you some time to write it all out. What would be on that list? Because awareness is where this begins. And once you see it, you can start asking a different question. Now, once everything is visible, it becomes very clear. You're carrying things that were never yours to begin with. So the next step is the ownership shift. This is where you start asking, is this actually mine to own? Not can I do it, because you can. That's why you've become the default in the first place. But should you be the one doing it? Somewhere along the way, being capable became being responsible for everything. And that's where the trap forms. Because you don't just take ownership of your role, you take ownership of everyone else's. That was me. I thought being the one who could handle it all was just part of who I was. But I didn't realize how much it was costing me. Ownership isn't about doing more. It's about being intentional about what's actually yours. So look back at that list that you just made and ask yourself, did I choose to own this or did I default into it? Every time you release what isn't yours, you create space for what is. What on your list looks like you defaulting to something that's not yours? But even when you realize something isn't yours, there's still a moment where everything can snap back into place. Because the habit isn't just what you carry, it's how quickly you say, I've got it. Remember my train story. So the third step is the pause before yes. Before you respond, before you step in, before you automatically say yes. Just pause. And inside that pause, ask, is this mine? Do I have the capacity? Do I actually want to? And let the answer be honest. Because without that pause, you'll keep recreating the same pattern. So imagine this. The next time something comes your way, instead of immediately saying yes, you take one breath. Just one. And in that breath, you check in with yourself. That's the moment everything shifts. Because that's where you move from being the default to becoming the creator of a life that actually supports you.